The daring humor of Blazing Saddles is an acquired taste, but a treat for those who love it. The American Film Institute ranked it number 6 on their list of the 100 funniest movies of all time. Keep watching to learn the secrets the Blazing Saddles producers kept hidden from the public. Poor screenings. It took convincing to even let the studio release Blazing Saddles. No one laughed when it was first shown to them. Warner Brothers executive Ted Ashley wasn't pleased by the first screening. He came with a long list of notes for scenes that needed to be cut and elements needed to be removed. Mel Brooks said he'd comply, but threw all of Ted's notes out instead. It was kept the way it was and screened for blue-collar Warner Brothers employees instead. President John Calley convinced them to lease in New York, Chicago, and LA, and it fared much better in the public sphere, becoming a blockbuster. The premiere. Blazing Saddles premiered at the now-defunct Pickwick Drive-In Theater in Burbank, California. Instead of an A-list event with limos and fancy dresses, they took a different approach. Guests rode in on horseback. It fit the movie's Western theme and subversive style. The potential for a franchise. The desire to spin a successful film into a multimedia franchise has increased in the 2020s, but that's not where it began. It was very much alive in the 70s. There was almost a Blazing Saddles spin-off TV show called Black Bart. The pilot aired April 4th, 1975, but it never reached the public. There were also talks of bringing Blazing Saddles to the Broadway stage, like other Mel Brooks hits, like The Producers. He said he had a few ideas, but felt the story was too vulgar to get away with it today, especially with the racial slurs it contains. An Unwanted Resemblance. Hedy Lamarr was the antagonist of Blazing Saddles. The problem was the name had an uncanny resemblance to Hedley Lamarr, a successful actress of old Hollywood. Harvey Korman, who played the character, joked that she might sue. His offhanded comment turned out to be right. The issue was settled out of court, and the name went unchanged. The Horse Punch-Out. It's difficult to pin down one scene in Blazing Saddles as the most offensive, but the horse punch is a convincing candidate. Mongo parks his horse in a no parking zone. Another rider confronts him, and he punches him and his horse to the ground. Mel allegedly based the event off a story he heard from his former boss, Sid Caesar, who wrote about it in his 1982 biography, Where Have I Been? The scene was played for comedy, but not everyone appreciated it. Animal rights activists sent angry letters about how the horse was treated. The truth was no animals were harmed in the making of the scene. They used 2 horses that were trained to fall on command. The title. The original title of the film was Tex X, a reference to Malcolm X. That was changed to Black Bart. It still didn't feel right to the writers, who considered switching it to The Purple Sage. Showers always seemed to bring the best ideas, and that was where Mel Brooks was when he came up with Blazing Saddles as the title. His wife loved it, and that was enough to convince him they'd finally hit the nail on the head. Getting the last laugh. Mel compares the writing of Blazing Saddles to a drunken fistfight. The team of 5 all wanted to have their ideas put in the movie and weren't afraid to let it be known. Most of his ideas were the ones that made it through. He was not only the loudest, but had more creative rights as the director. That doesn't mean that everything was planned. The scene where Waco Kid consoles Bart by telling him to remember that the townsfolk are, morons, was ad-libbed. Cleavon Little cracked up, and the line became iconic. Mel's son arrived while the movie was being written. The script for Blazing Saddles took so long to write that Mel's son Max was born during the process. He wanted to make a great film, but he knew he also had to finish fast to get money to support his family. It seems fitting then that Max would grow up to be a writer. He primarily works on zombie films such as World War Z. A stranger comes to town. Many of the best scenes in movies are made from embarrassing, happy accidents. That was true of a classic moment near the end of the movie. Sheriff Bart and the Waco Kid go through the back lot of the Warner Brothers studio and run through the gates in one of the biggest fourth wall breaks in cinema history. Everyone turns to the right except for one man. He was a random pedestrian who happened to have wandered onto the set. Mel knew it would make the scene even funnier, so he brought up the paperwork and let him stay in. Choosing the cast. Mel wanted Richard Pryor to play Sheriff Bart, saying he was the most blessed with talent. These blessings came with personal demons and substance abuse issues, though, so the studio suggested Cleavon Little. His perfect line delivery got him the part. Gene Wilder wasn't the first choice for the Waco Kid. It was offered to Johnny Carson, who turned it down, and Gig Young, who had problems with drinking off set. Gene got it next and gave an iconic performance. Madeline Kahn was Mel's first pick for Lily von Shtupp ever since he saw her in Paper Moon. She was slated to appear in the film adaptation of the Broadway musical Mame before filming on Blazing Saddles began. She was so excited that her co-star Lucille Ball claimed she purposefully got fired from that movie so she could give all her attention to Blazing Saddles. Her dedication wasn't the only reason she got the part. Mel allegedly asked her to pull up her skirt so he could see her legs. The character was a spoof of Marlene Dietrich and had to have nice legs. Madeline didn't mind but was nervous and told him not to touch them. Alex Karras was a successful football player in the NFL for 12 seasons. He went to the All-Pro team 9 times, joined the NFL's All-Decade team in the 60s, and was a 4-time Pro Bowler. He left it all behind after leaving the Detroit Lions to pursue acting, starting his career with a part in the sitcom Webster. Fabulous friendships. It's well known that Mel Brooks and Gene Wilder work well together. They've done other films like Young Frankenstein. That's not the only friendship relating to Blazing Saddles, though. Mel met Richard Pryor in New York. He talked to him after seeing his stand-up routine at the Vanguard. They became friends, and Richard allegedly did a lot of the writing for the character of Mongo in Blazing Saddles. The film also began an unlikely friendship between two iconic directors. Alfred Hitchcock was a fan who praised Mel for his work on it. One cut scene. A film like Blazing Saddles needs a lot of editing, but there's only one scene that Mel admits he cut at the studio's request. It's perhaps the most risque one of all. Bart and Lily are in her dressing room. She blows out the candles and starts putting on the charm. She asks him, quote, "Is it true what you say about you people?" And he responds, "I hate to disillusion you, ma'am, but you're sucking on my arm." A nod from the Duke. Mel wanted to include well-known Western actors in his parody of the genre. Few were ever bigger than the Duke, John Wayne. He got an opportunity when they met on the Warner Brothers lot. John said he'd heard about the movie, and Mel threw him a few lines. He politely declined, but said that he'd be first in line to see it. I'll take that deal. Even friends have to negotiate from time to time. Gene Wilder wanted a little something in exchange for his work on Blazing Saddles. What he needed was a bit of time for his friend to look over his latest screenplay and help him make it a film. It was for Young Frankenstein, which came out less than a year later in December of 1974. It was also a major hit, so the deal turned out to be a win-win. Now it's time to hear from you. Which one of these was most surprising to hear about? Let us know in the comments section below.